Welcome, one and all, to the first episode of this unofficial BYU podcast. I'm your host, Dallin Smith. I've been a big BYU fan basically my whole life. I think it stems from probably 2003. So that was about 17 years ago. I'm 27 now, so yeah, so most of my life. I was about 10 years old when I started watching BYU. I've lived in Utah my whole life. And yeah, I've always liked BYU. My grandpa grew up in Provo. He used to, I believe, write a little bit or do the pictures or some sort of like video or like photo editing for the Daily Herald. And he did a lot of coverage on BYU. So, I mean, I've got this in my family a little bit. So hopefully I can make some sort of entertaining little podcast for you all here, but I've always wanted to try it. This is my first try, so here we go. Let's get started. BYU decimated, number 11 BYU decimated the Texas State Bobcats on Saturday night, 52-14, finally in front of like 6,000 fans, I believe. I looked and saw in the game, I think there were a lot of students in the stands, which was really cool to see because BYU hadn't been playing against anybody in front of fans, really. I think the first time they did was last week, and it was a bunch of Houston fans, and I think they were quoted as saying, well, we're just going to pretend that they're our fans, and I think it's kind of refreshing sort of a deal that they were able to play in front of fans, and they were their actual fans, which is kind of a cool deal. Zach Wilson, 19-25, 287 yards, 11.5 average, 4 touchdowns, and a QBR of 87.6. And he had that freaking amazing throw going from one side of the field to the other, throwing a 45-yard bomb to Dax Milne. Sorry, it's hard for me to say the name. Sometimes I'm just not good at saying certain names. BYU defensively forced, I think, 2 or 3 turnovers. Got a pick 6 from Isaiah Kafusi, which was amazing, which resulted to a 52-14 rout. Now, I'm not going to lie to you guys. When the game first started, because I'll probably have to go back to the beginning of the game, where the Bobcats just drove it down the field and scored. And I was like, oh no, not this again. We can't have this. BYU needs to dominate this game if they want to move up. Fortunately for us, they settled down. They scored 35 points. It was 35-7 at the end of the first half. They score another 14 and then kick a field goal. It was pretty much BYU had it from the early start. And you could just tell the offense just really, when that first drive went down for Texas State, the offense really kind of picked it up at the end. Because the offense, I think, knew that in order for them to actually be in the game, they had to actually put some points on the board, which, of course, ended up being 52-14. BYU moved up to number 11, which is pretty impressive. We're above Miami now, which, Miami's having a fantastic season, but I think BYU is having a slightly better one because here's the thing. They played a Bronco Mendenhall Virginia team and didn't really take it to them. I mean, they dominated the game from a perspective of they won the game, but they didn't really blow them out like heavily. I'm trying to figure out the word for that. Yeah, I thought Virginia was going to win the game, honestly. Penn State lost, which I think really helped BYU. Because now this weekend, it's going to be Ohio State and Penn State. And if Penn State can win, that opens up a lot of doors. And then if a top 10 team could lose a couple of games, which there's a lot of football left. We're only at the end of October. We still got a couple months left before things could happen. But this leads into the different questions I had. I had a couple of questions leading into this before I get into the I believe it's Western Kentucky is who they play next. I don't know. It's been kind of weird to see. Let me look this up really quick. Yeah, they're going to play Western Kentucky at 8:15 on Halloween night, BYU. Before I give a preview of that, I wanted to talk. There's a couple of big burning questions, and I actually added a third one just a couple of minutes ago before this all happened. But is Zach Wilson, going to win the Heisman? I think that's the first question. I'm going to say no. Here's the thing. Look, I think personally, and I probably have to watch more tape, but I've seen enough tape on Trevor Lawrence to see that Zach Wilson clearly can throw better than he can. He's a better runner than Trevor Lawrence. But he's got so much the hype. They've got the number one team in the country. I think if they go win out, it's easy pickings who they're going to pick. Is Zach Wilson a finalist? I think he can be. I think he's probably the second best player in the country behind Trevor Lawrence. So to be quite honest, one of the more accurate, has a lot of touchdowns. He has 22 touchdowns, throwing and running, which is really incredible through 6 games. Nearly has 2,000 yards passing. I think he's close to 300 or 400 yards rushing too, which is really, really crazy to think about. And just look, I'm not hating on Trevor Lawrence. I think he's an incredible talent too. It's just from the perspective, maybe it's because BYU has played these not good opponents that it makes me believe that he's a better player. Look, there was a play in the Texas State game where they had 2 guys open. I think one guy in the middle and they had another guy on the right. And he just throws it to the guy that's not that open just to show off his arm strength. I don't know necessarily if BYU was intending on doing that. I don't know if he was intending on doing that, or BYU was trying to say, okay, hey, make some throws so you can look good. But it kind of looked like that. You could kind of make the case that he was trying to show off a little bit because they're playing a weaker team. I'm not saying that was the case, but, you had 2 other guys open. Why'd you pick that guy? You know what I mean? And maybe he was just thinking it was the right play to do it. So, and then BYU playoff chances. That's another question that's been coming up. Look, I'm trying to keep a not drink the blue Kool-Aid perspective, because it's hard for me to say. I think a New Year's Eve 6 game, no question, they beat Western Kentucky, Boise State. I believe it's Eastern Alabama, and then they beat San Diego State. No, it's North Alabama, excuse me. But they beat those 4 teams. Yeah, definitely. I think they'll make New Year's Eve 6. Here's the issue, though. Do they have enough of a schedule to actually get through? And the reason why I didn't think this was a big question when I first was making the podcast was I was like, 10-0, it's a no-brainer. They should be in. They're dominating a ton of teams. They'll have Boise State, who's probably going to be the Mountain West Conference champion, under their belt. They'll have the big victories. They'll have the comeback victory against Houston. They'll have all this stuff on their resume. The issue that I feel like is that, okay, it's the schedule ends. I'm looking right here. It's December 12th, 2020. So if we're ending the season on December 12th, 2020, and plus BYU plays Boise State 11-6, has a bye week, and then goes and plays North Alabama, then I think it's another bye where now we're waiting after Thanksgiving, which I think everybody's off after Thanksgiving anyway, or during Thanksgiving. But they have another week off, and then they play San Diego State. But there's still going to be meaningful games being played in between then. So I think, here's the thing. I think they need to add one more game on in order to really kind of solidify, okay, they deserve a New Year's Eve 6. I don't think they need 2 games, but they need at least one, because they need to reach to that Christmas Eve, because Christmas Eve is really when bowl games start happening. So if they're really going to want to get into this, I believe, we have to schedule a last game after San Diego State in order to do that. So, but BYU playoff, possibility, at this point with how they're playing, how they're dominating games, how they've, shrugged off their shoulders the UTSA disappointment to winning at Houston, to beating Texas State the way they did by scoring 52 points, by, the way they're probably going to win against Western Kentucky this weekend. But it's just something that remains to be seen. And definitely, and Gregor Bell said this the other day when he was on BYU TV Sports as part of their, I think they have a noon show with a couple of guys that are pretty familiar. I don't know their exact names because I don't watch the show. I only watch it on YouTube. So if I find out the names, if it's, if I post this on YouTube, which I probably end up, I'll put it on the screen right here for you who is on there. But Gregor Bell was on there, and it was interesting because I've never been part of a season like this where it's going down to one game. Because the best team I've seen since becoming a BYU fan, I was born in 93. So the best BYU team I've seen, I wasn't a fan when the 96 team was around. I wasn't a fan for when 2001 team was around. I became a football fan and a sports fan really big when I was 8. So it was 2003. This is when BYU started taking their downturn. And then Bronco Mendenhall rose through the ashes, and you know what I mean? So, but I've never been part of a season where BYU, that November 6th game, is one of the biggest games in the history of the school. The history of the school. I get Oklahoma was a big win. I get beating Nebraska on a Hail Mary. Was a big win. I get number 6 Wisconsin. I get all these other wins that BYU's had in their past. But here's the thing. They were not expected to win, and they weren't that good. The BYU teams of those times were not that good. But this team trying to get to a New Year's Eve 6, and I didn't even know this. When BYU won their national championship, they weren't in a New Year's Eve 6 game. So BYU as a program has never really been in a New Year's Eve 6 game. And so that's where I didn't understand, because there was always the argument, Utah fans, we've been to these type of games. We've been to New Year's Eve 6 games. We've won them. What have you guys done? I'm we won a national championship. But now that I think about that, there wasn't, at that time, it wasn't really considered a New Year's Eve 6 national championship, or it wasn't a New Year's Eve 6 bowl game that they were in. So, I think the big picture is you have to beat Boise State. You have to go undefeated, and then let's let the schedule play out. I believe Jake Hatch had, I don't know if he played it or if it was something he said, but he said something to the degree today that BYU needs to just keep winning games. If BYU keeps winning games, taking care of business, then let's let the chips fall in line. I was very happy Penn State won because that's big for BYU. Look, Ohio State, I thought they could have lost on Saturday, but the second half they just kind of pulled it out. You know what I mean? It was close for the first quarter, and then the second quarter they just boom. They just killed that team. So I think it was Nebraska they played. I can't remember who they played. So sorry if I'm not getting it right. I'm a BYU fan, so I don't really know. But I do know Indiana went and beat Penn State. And I was watching that game, and when he stretched his arm out, I was sitting there dude, just let them have the 2 points, because BYU needs it. Because now it comes a situation this weekend, because BYU has such an easy game that now if Penn State wins and knocks Ohio State down, and if another top 10 team get knocked down, they're obviously going to make the top 10 at that point because they're not going to lose the game. Now you ride into Boise State with all that momentum, And it's going to be a much bigger game because at that point, now you can get that notch under your belt. And the teams that needed to lose lost, which I don't think a ton are going to lose this weekend. But Penn State, who knows what you could get from them at this point. If Penn State wins against Ohio State this weekend, Big Ten might be kind of in trouble as far as trying to make that playoff. So there's just got to be a lot that happens. I'm not quite sold on Notre Dame. I'm not quite sold on, Cincinnati and stuff like that. People are they are saying Cincinnati's really good, which they did beat a ranked opponent. They could say that they've done that more so than BYU has. But I don't know all they've played, so I'm just not 100% sold on them yet to make the playoff. They definitely could, but they're set to basically be in the New Year's Eve 6 if they win out, which they have a good chance of doing. But BYU has to have a couple things come their way, so it's just going to be a crazy, crazy sort of end of the season. I'm pretty excited for it. But now let's get into the preview for Eastern Kentucky. BYU is playing another, basically, smaller college. I'm not saying they're bad. I'm not going to say a team's bad. I'm sorry. In college football, you can't say a team is bad just because they're bad. Or just because they're in a, lower division. I didn't mean to say that they were bad. I meant to say, because they're in a lower division or because they're in, a conference that's not as good as, let's say, Mountain West. You can't say a team is not good. Texas State had been in every game up until BYU. They led against BYU, but you knew BYU was going to retain control. And they took control and won the game. That's why I think, per the different opponents, that's why BYU is so good. And I think that's why people are drinking the blue Kool-Aid with them. But Western Kentucky, they're not having the best season. So I expect BYU to win this game. Now, my keys to the game, if they want to be in contention for the college football playoff or New Year's Eve 6, they need to take the lead early, just like they did against Texas State, just like they did against Louisiana Tech, just like they did against Troy and Navy. And they need to destroy Western Kentucky. The thing I'm nervous about is Kalani Sitake going to get in trouble for and be repped as putting up points on the board. Because I was seeing a lot of it on Twitter on Saturday night. Okay. So, but here's the issue I have with that, and I didn't mean to really make this a segment. If you're mad that BYU's doing that, I totally get it, but at the same time, people have to understand that we're trying to compete for not only a New Year's Eve 6 game, but possibly a national championship. So with the schedule they have, I'm sorry, but they have to do this. They have to blow out teams by a lot. They have to put points on the board. They have to look good doing it, which for the most part with all of them they have, and that's why they're ranked number 11 right now. They were ranked 12 last week and they moved up another spot, which I felt like there were a couple teams that shouldn't be ahead of BYU, which I'm not going to get into that. That's an entirely different discussion. But it's okay, look, I get the frustration. I get it. And we probably shouldn't have, and that was another great play, by the way. It was the fake punt. Probably shouldn't have done that. I was like, oh, that's a cool play. But I'm like, we're up 49-14. Or we were up 49-7. I was like, don't do that again because people are going to get pissed if we keep doing that. So, but that's the thing. I think people get it too because the coach for Texas State even came up and shook Sitake's hand. I don't think he was too mad about it because it's something we have to do. It's something BYU has to do. I hate it, but it's something they have to do in order to win. And this is a thing too, also, another kind of weird tangent I'm going off on. I was listening to the radio this morning when I was going out to get some food. And I was listening to the Zone. And they have the little segments of people they talked about. A former BYU linebacker, I don't remember his name, so I'm sorry. I don't remember the name. person was on there. He said he wants all the smoke. And I agree with him fully. Because here's the thing. I used to be under the impression BYU needed to be in a conference to really be in the discussion to win a national championship. Because I feel like recruiting was better and all this, and this. But BYU has done a terrific job with just doing this because by being an independent. Because now, because of the pandemic, and they got extremely lucky, now they have a shot at getting this New Year's Eve 6 game. And if BYU wins it, you're going to get recruits going, whoa, the BYU team's actually pretty good. Maybe I should go there. They could be competing for national championships. I'm not saying BYU is going to become the next Clemson or Alabama. I'm just saying that you want to take on those teams. And I feel like BYU would have been pretty decent. I think this BYU team is that good. I have never been sold on a BYU team before until this year. And it's because every game where they've played a Troy or they've played a Louisiana Tech, they've looked like the UTSA game. And so it's because, we got this mentality, you know. But then for the big games, they would focus and they get a win. But I'm like, if you guys would have just focused for the UTSA game and not lost, you know, we'd be in discussion for winning a national championship, you know. And that's why I think the committee now is giving respect to BYU this year, is because that's what they're doing. And bottom line, it sucks, but they have to do it. If they want to win or even have a shot at getting a New Year's Eve 6 bid, they have to go into this Western Kentucky game and just destroy them. If Eastern Kentucky, or Western Kentucky, excuse me, I put it as Eastern Kentucky on my stupid paper. I should just fix that next time. If they want to win the game, they got to just keep it close. It's like plain and simple. If it's a closer game, it's going to bode well for Western Kentucky than it is BYU. But even then, I still think BYU will come out on top. And here's my prediction. BYU is simply going to win this game because they have a better level of focus from winning the Houston game than they did with the UTSA. I'm picking BYU to win 45-10 in this game. I'm going to just go with those because I don't think BYU is going to score 50 every time. They could score like 60, you know, but I think if they do it again where they take out Zach Wilson, there's no way. And I think they should do that. I think if they've blown him out enough, take a control, put the second string in. Except Romney played terrible. in that game, he was so good last year, and then he just made some stupid decisions. I'm looking at this right now. He was 5 for 10, 45 yards, or 49 yards. Sorry, his average was 4.9 yards. He threw a pick, and he had a QB rating of 4.0. Okay, Neil Powell went 1 for 1 for 16 yards. He had a 94.8 pass rating. Come on, Romney. Let's get it going. You're probably going to play next game, so pick it up a little bit. Don't make those dumb decisions. Don't be nervous. You already won the game, so why you got to be nervous for? You know? So it's just things like that. But it's cool that we could talk on the show and be like, hey, it's okay. You know, BYU still won the game. Instead of like years past where it's like, well, we blew it. So yeah, pick is 45-10. I think BYU is going to come out and just really destroying this game. And then we can focus on Boise State, and that's going to be the game. That could be like game of the year territory in college football. I don't know, but I'm happy Boise State moved up in the standings. When I saw the 25 this morning, I got excited because then boom, ranked opponent, boom, if they win the Mountain West, then you beat a conference champion, but you also beat a ranked opponent. So that just bodes so much better. They have to win these next 2 games and then move on to win the next 2. And then obviously, like I said before, let's get another another game on the schedule. I don't know if that'll happen, but it should happen. All right, let's get to the good, the bad, and the ugly of this weekend. The good, BYU played amazing from the get-go. And I hope they can continue this even against Boise State. The throw that Zach Wilson made was insane. They projected that's like a 63-yard throw. I think it was a little bit more than that, but it was like a 63-yard throw. He's throwing it from one side of the field to the other, 45 yards to Dax Mill. It was amazing. It was just, I was impressed. I've never seen a quarterback do that. I've never seen like Patrick Mahomes. I've never seen like a quarterback do that. It was the craziest throw I've ever seen. And it was perfect. It hit Dax Mill right where he needed it, and then he scored a touchdown. It was amazing. I'm still geeking out about that throw. Granted, I have a kid now, so I had to watch the games at very low volume or no volume at all. And my son wouldn't sleep that night, so I was watching on my phone with no sound. And but it was still cool. It was so dope. It was so cool. I don't mean to get out of like professionalism, obviously I bode professionalism, but that was a dope throw. It was amazing. Penn State's loss really helped BYU, and now it can help this weekend if they can get a win against Ohio State, which I'm going to be pulling for them to win, and maybe a couple of top 10 teams losing to some ranked opponents. So that can happen. Obviously, BYU is going to be top 10 going into the Boise State game, but then it really helps BYU win. Helps them out so that they could get that New Year's Eve 6 bowl game that everybody's been wanting to get. And finally, the fake punt was so sweet. I texted my dad right after that. I'm like, holy, that guy's fast. Like, even the punter for BYU is fast. He was crazy quick. And I didn't think that they weren't prepared for it. I just think nobody expected that. And I think Texas State was like, they're going to punt the ball, right? So that's kind of what helped the punter get up the field. The bad. Come on, second string. Pick it up next game. Come on, man. Except we got that interception. That was pretty sweet. And the ugly. I already said he had a QBR of 4. Come on, Romney. Let's pick it up next week. Let's make not so many hasty decisions next week. Come on, man. And finally, the question of the week. What is my favorite BYU moment? So I've got a lot. Okay. Biggest moments are like BYU winning last second, John Beck to Johnny Harleen. Other ones include the 4th down and 18 from Max Hall to Austin Collie. The throw, I think, to George, which in between 2 Utah players. The win against Oklahoma. The win against Nebraska on a Hail Mary that basically made Tanner Mangum a legend in BYU. Also, the win against Wisconsin. There's just a ton of games where, and even the win against USC, that was sweet. Last year, that game was so good. It was such a good game. And I felt like the whole time BYU could win the game, but I didn't think it was going to happen. My favorite BYU moment, it was because I was at the game. I was at Lavelle Edwards Stadium for Boise State BYU 2015. So my cousin moved into our house, and he liked to go to sporting events with me. I think I went to like 10 Jazz games that year at the end of the season. It was pretty cool. It was back before the Jazz were good. Kind of like they were kind of on the upswing of getting good, where they won most of their games. There was a couple games they didn't win, but yeah, it was pretty fun. But one of the games that I got to go to was BYU Boise State, and I probably won't show the picture, but my cousin decided to wear a Utah shirt shirt into their stadium. And it was so stupid. People were like, "Oh, did you forget what game you were at? Utah's not playing." And I'm like, who cares if the guy is deciding to wear a Utah shirt to a BYU game? I thought it was brilliant because it was funny. It would rile people up. But he was a Boise State fan, so we went to go to this game, and they didn't have Boise State stuff anywhere. So what is he gonna do? You know what I mean? So yeah, decided to piss a few BYU fans off by, wearing this Utah shirt. So we get to our seats, and so I was on the other side of the student section, like I was on the other bowl, and half of that section was BYU and Boise State fans. Which there were some great Boise State fans, but there were some Boise State fans. There were some in front of us. I didn't like them. I was trash talking the whole game, and we were down most of the game. I remember one of the coolest moments was the little short guy. I got to pull this up. Give me one sec. Oh, I bumped the mic. Sorry. Okay, 2015. Here we go. 2015. Give me that game summary. I love the score still. Okay, it was Mitchell Juergens. I see this little short 87 just going right up the field. I didn't know what Mangum was doing. He had a Boise State guy in his arms, and he just chucks it down the field, and he's wide open. Mitch Juergens had an amazing game. I think it was like 2 touchdowns he caught. He had 4 receptions, 172. Wow. That was an insane game. Holy cow. 4 receptions, 172 yards, and 2 touchdowns. That was crazy. We get a couple turnovers. We finally got Hine to score a touchdown. It was 17-14 in the third quarter. They got a touchdown. We somehow came back with Tanner Mangum scoring a touchdown. Oh, by the way, one of the best catches I've ever seen in that game that didn't count, which there was no pass interference. It was so stupid. BYU shut out Boise State in that game, I remember. And I could see it from right here, but I remember that anyway. They didn't score the third quarter. BYU got that 1-yard run. And then the final play, so it was a 4th and 7. They're on Boise State's side of the field. And I'm going to preface this right now. If you're watching this on YouTube, I have worn glasses probably since 2016. So, because I hated contacts, I could not see very well in this game. Okay. I see Mangum take the snap, and he rolls left a little bit. He kind of shuffles his feet, kind of waiting to see somebody get open. And all of a sudden, I see him move to his right, and I see a defender coming, and he just throws it. And I'm like, what? I'm sitting there on the other side. I'm like, what are you doing? I thought he was throwing the ball away. It's like, we need to score on this play, dude. Because I'm looking at this, there's 45 seconds left. It was that close. But he throws it, and I see Juergens go up for it. And I had to look around, and everybody was cheering. I was like, he actually caught that? So I'm by the scoreboard, right? And I look up at the scoreboard, and I'm like, there's no way. And he caught it, and I was like, holy cow. I was at one of the coolest games ever. And then Kai Nakua, that pick 6. Oh, I've never heard the stadium that loud before in my life. Like, that was the only time I heard the stadium loud. So, it was crazy. And then there's another picture of my cousin. My cousin wasn't very happy. We were all happy. We're all BYU fans. And he was happy. Or we were happy and he wasn't. The best part of that is when that pick 6, though, went through, the Boise State fans just left. They all just left. So it was just, it was the coolest thing ever. Like, the Wisconsin game was cool and it was special for me And I think for anybody, for its own reasons, like it was the first football game I watched with my wife, like the first sporting. My wife and I were dating at the time. We watched it for the first time. Watched a sporting event for the first time together, even though my wife's not a big sports fan. It was so much cooler than the Nebraska game for me. It was just like, I was stunned. I had to get up for church the next day, which I lived in Orem at the time, and I had to go to Lehigh. I didn't sleep, go to bed till like 4 a.m. I was so amped up about that. It was pretty sweet. So yeah, that's the best BYU moment for me ever. And I don't think if I would have went to that game, I think it would be different if I wouldn't have been at the game. Obviously, Tanner Mangum coming in and, throwing Hail Mary off of a mission where he didn't play football for a long time was pretty impressive. BYU winning all those BYU Utah games when it meant something and they won the games, actually, it was pretty sweet. I got a free car wash from my stepdad when BYU beat Oklahoma. So, yeah, there's plenty of moments. I was just at that game. It was pretty sweet, and I really enjoyed that moment. But anyway, thank you all for tuning in to the podcast for the week. Hopefully next week, we'll have some more fun stuff to talk about. I'll get into the next question next week, which I've been thinking about for a couple weeks. I wanted to save it for next week because I was going to originally do the podcast last week. Didn't actually happen. But now we're off and running on it. So I do appreciate you all for tuning in and listening. And I'll see you next week after BYU takes on Western Kentucky. See y'all then.